5 police officers have been killed, 12 police officers total wounded in Dallas, Texas. A lot of the information is sort of early at this point. We've compiled what we do know, and we sort of have a sense of what we may know and what we don't know. It sort of feels like Donald Rumsfeld. We've assessed a 4-quadrant list, and the unknown unknowns are, I guess, the ones, Lewis, we won't be talking about today. The shooter himself was killed after he was cornered in a garage at El Centro Community College in Dallas, where the shooting took place. There was an exchange of gunfire, and ultimately, and this is becoming one of the interesting and unusual storylines within this story, killed by a police-detonated bomb, Lewis, which certainly is, at least as far as we know, a relatively unusual technique for American police to employ.
Yeah, a robot-guided, not automated,
right,
but a robot with a bomb attached to it that they used to blow them up. Yeah, it's quite a feature.
Police so far have declined to specifically identify the individual considered to be sort of the main sniper. And this is also part of the sort of fluidity and uncertainty around some of this information, which is that on the one hand, the primary sniper has reportedly indicated that he was acting alone, while at the same time there have been multiple people detained. There have been reports of, at minimum, 2 snipers in a sort of triangulation of the police officers that were the targets here. Not unusual, Lewis, that at this early stage of the game, some of the information would directly conflict with itself.
Yeah, a bit early to really get into the nitty-gritty.
As far as affiliations, the suspect, according to police, stated that he was not affiliated with any groups, and he stated that he did this alone. There are some groups which at this point I see no point in naming that have claimed responsibility for this attack. Their online presences very quickly disappearing from the internet. And I think at this point, Lewis, the best thing is not to name any of the possible groups or anything like that. We'll have plenty of time over the weekend to suss out more information, and I'm sure have a much more detailed report for you on Monday. Officers, as I mentioned, taking 3 people into custody, and I want to get into that a little bit later because, interestingly, and maybe not surprisingly, this issue of open carry became a factor in terms of who was taken into custody and detained by police. Now, Lewis, you predicted this. You specifically have been saying for a long time, people are going to start shooting and killing police soon, the way things have been going. And that is exactly what happened. And I think this is part of actually the problem. You predicted specifically that this would happen. Although this is shocking, I'm not feeling viscerally that compelled by this. And I think that's an indication of sort of how bad the situation has gotten. Yet, yeah, now police were killed. Yes, yet another black person was killed. Yes, a kid was killed. Each of these stories individually should be hugely shocking and sort of creating these visceral responses, but they're not, and that's an indication of how bad the problem has gotten.
No doubt. Yeah, I think this is what we're seeing now. This is the logical progression of things. This isn't, and it's not going to stop. This will happen again.
This was the deadliest day for law enforcement since 9/11, and I think that when you think about that, we should be having way stronger reactions. But I woke up and I read the news of what ended at around 2:45 a.m. in the morning, and I was incredibly moved in terms of wanting to know the details and figure out who did this and why. But I didn't have a reaction where this was out of this world, and I think that's part of the problem. We have a few short videos we're going to play for you, just an incredible, never-ending list of these amateur videos that were shot. Total chaos and terror on the streets of Dallas. Here's the first video for you. This video drawing a lot of attention because, as you see, the shooter in this particular video seems to be employing what some describe as tactically aware movements and actually drawing a police officer around one of those pillars that you see and ultimately appearing to shoot him dead. And this is going to be video, like many others, that is going to be looked at to say like the Zapruder film of the JFK assassination would probably be about right. Here's another video from the crowd of the chaos that was experienced there.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
Sounds like a war zone, Lewis. I mean, no doubt about it. whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then one more video to play for you here, last one, and this is literally people running for their lives, at least potentially, not knowing what are these sounds, what is this chaos. So there's so many elements here that it's really not possible to just focus on one aspect of this thing in order to really understand it. Greg Stevens wrote to me and he said, David, this involves cultural issues, this involves economic issues, this involves social issues. And as he and I have both said, the public and corporate media often want to find the thing to blame. For some, it's already that this was a protest connected to Black Lives Matter, protesting what we have covered as the very violent killings of non-white individuals by white cops. And for some, that is the issue here. Although right now, we don't even know the race of the shooters. It is based on the focus of the protesters being violent against police, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for others, it's gun safety. Gun safety is the lens through which to analyze this, the availability of guns. Of course, that's an issue, but it is not the only issue. It's important, though. And for others, the issue has quickly become the sort of inevitable reality that when you have such disproportionate violence against non-white men by law enforcement, that this will boil over. And Lewis, in predicting that this would happen, was not just picking this prediction out of thin air. It was based on the reality of the situation. So we have to talk about all of these issues. Open carry, quickly, I want to mention, this incident shows us that in more than one way, more guns everywhere, that mentality of the gun fetishists and the NRA is bogus. On the one hand, if you can open carry legally, people who want to do this stuff can walk around with their guns, and because that's allowed, there can't be an intervention done merely because someone is walking around with their gun. That's number one. And on the other side of this, and Greg Stevens wrote to me about this as well, a man had his picture plastered all over social media last night as a possible suspect. He had nothing to do with it. Both police and citizens focused on him because he was at the event with a gun displayed. He was an open carry activist not involved in this shooting. And during the chaos, police mistakenly identified him and he had done nothing wrong. So not only do you have someone who is innocent being detained because it's not easy to figure out who the good guys with the guns are. You also have police attention, Lewis, going to someone who had nothing to do with this. So the idea that just having more guns is this panacea solution is so bogus. And yet again, we are seeing that in this case.
And my question is, what will it take for meaningful gun reform?
Yeah.
Will it take something like this? Will it take dead cops killed en masse, more attacks directed at police, or will that just further militarize police departments? Will it take someone storming Congress with a bunch of rifles? I mean, what will it take for people to realize what needs to change?
My social media exploded with people taking these hard line, you're with us or against us. Are you for Black Lives Matter or are you for all lives matter? As if we weren't divided enough on so many of these issues. How do we proceed from here on out? It's been merely a few hours since this tragedy happened, and instead of being able to grieve for the lives that were lost, we're being told to pick sides. David, will you now denounce Black Lives Matter? Well, why? What exactly, who exactly would I be denouncing? David, will you denounce the All Lives Matter group, which has come up as this response to Black Lives Matter? Can't we simultaneously want police reform when that makes sense and also not want dead police officers and also be able to critique any and all sides that deserve criticism without being called cop haters or racists or whoever? We can simultaneously recognize that not all officers are violent and that pointing out racism by police also doesn't make you a sort of apologist for people who are taking to violence. I don't know that those conversations can realistically be had at this point.
No, everyone's very emotional right now,
Yeah.
and the internet isn't helping. People just need to really just step away from it all and just let the air clear. And I don't know, calm down and just try to be rational and logical.
But understandably, it's difficult to be calm when you have on the same day news of police officers killing more black men, and at the same time news of multiple officers being targeted in what appears to be, may have been, a relatively well-coordinated mass shooting. It's hard to be calm in those situations. So I understand the reactions, but saying, hey, now is the time to say Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, or now is the time to say more guns or gun safety, what are we going to accomplish by that?
Not much. Being divisive is not going to help.
Okay, I did want to break in with just a little more information. The suspect has now been identified in the shootings that have left 12 police officers overall injured, 5 of whom lost their lives. The individual has been identified as 25-year-old Micah Xavier Johnson of Mesquite, Texas. According to law enforcement sources familiar with the investigation, a neighbor says there are police cars outside of his home as we speak. This is still breaking news. The narrative remains that this is someone that told negotiators at some point during this shooting that he was upset about recent police shootings, that he wanted to kill white people, but particularly white police officers, and that he acted alone. This does not yet change the reality that there were multiple people detained. And Lewis, as we know, and as people can see here, appears to be an African-American man, and all hell is now going to break loose, of course, in the midst of what were otherwise peaceful protests in Dallas. Absolute chaos and anarchy breaking out, and it's even too early to start putting together a sort of analysis of this, isn't it?
Yeah, just I'm sure everyone is watching and observing right now the chaos that's ensuing.
Yeah.
And once this guy's picture goes everywhere, that divisiveness is going to increase. We're going to see. I should just avoid the internet altogether for a few days.
Yeah, and I wish I knew what we were going to come to you with on Monday on this story. We will certainly know more, but I have no idea what we will know by Monday and what will have transpired over the weekend as well.